Never give up. Do your personal best every moment of every day. Never give up. See outside the box, especially when it comes to character. Why people never listen to youth, or do they? There was a time back in the 70s, this country was in major turmoil. Lots of protesting going on all across the country. Many times there were riots like those in Watts in California. But it was also an exciting time for those of us fresh out of high school, on our way to college for the first time. We had exciting dreams, made even more so by the people that we got to meet along the way, as was such at the time of this story. It was my second year in college. The campus was all in turmoil, as with so many campuses back in those days. Our school was somewhat unique, though, because it had no women students. And as the college across the quadrangle from us, only a few hundred yards away, had a similar uniqueness, except there were no men students. Yet all of us young men and young women were striving pretty much with the same concept in mind. How could we get through our studies, and how much trouble would we instigate and still get around to being able to graduate? Stephen King noted, author, labeled this time Hearts in Atlantis, because those of us who were good with numbers loved the game of hearts, because counting cards was a valuable skill for earning money, and money meant we could go out and socialize in better places. It was both a challenging time and a fun time. Those of us who were fortunate enough to get into college on scholarships like I didn't have to go to Vietnam, or at least it was postponed until after graduation. For some of us, it was a rough time for being an ROTC student. Many times you get spit upon and called a baby killer. I suppose that would even be stoned if it were still allowed. Fortunately, this was America and that wasn't allowed. I met some very interesting people along the way. In fact, my four-man lab team were among the best in the country, and it was an international. There was an Air Force officer who was going through physical rehab. It was taking the course just to jog his memory and keep sharp while he was physically recovering from an accident that he had. There was the son of a coffee plantation owner from Kenya. We never had to worry about whether we would get coffee or not, and we had plenty of coffee for our dorm. There was another person who had just finished training ROTC in the Israeli Air Force and is coming to Boston to help them avoid being part of the 1968 war. Then there was me, who had this crazy idea in high school to create a model space shuttle for a science fair project, and was crazy enough to launch the prototype at a baseball stadium that time was also shared by the New England Patriots. Boy, could I have been in a world of hurt. But they assigned me instead to working baseball parks all over the greater Boston area, de-weeding and seeding the fields so they would be in good condition for future games. And I was able to come up with a weeding process that allowed for the parks to only be needed once every 10 years. And my lab team and I came up with this log-decilog scale configuration that formed the perfect isosceles triangle and allowed for the measure of distances for trajectories with the accuracy of within 8 feet for targets that were as far away as the moon. So interesting to say, we got some pretty good summer jobs. Some of us got to work with some of the most brilliant minds in the country. We got to meet people like Francis Harry Compton Crick of DNA fame, Alexander W. Afkis, a semiconductor physics revolutionary, Paul Dudley White, and others like DJ Greenblatt and Joey Kalkweiser. And also one of their mentors, Louis Denise, whom I met, was at the time the oldest living student of Louis Pasteur. And I got to be his houseboy. One such person was also a reverend, but the nickname of Brother Blue because he dressed up on the weekends in a blue jester's uniform and told stories of encouragement. And inspiration. But Brother Blue also liked my story. It was about a young man who was always suffering from the agony of defeat, at least in the eyes of the beholding competitors that he would enter, always breaking every record in the record books, but never making the record books because somebody in his race beat him, and you'll find their name in the record books. He finally gets to play double-A ball on the practice squad for Pittsburgh Pirates, and he gets hit by a car and loses the use of his legs. But no one sees him climbing out of that wheelchair and getting back on his feet. He is all but forgotten because he never made the record books. He grew to become a priest in a church, but was shunned by the so-called generational members who felt he was an anomaly. Yet he was years ahead of his time. Color was no difference to him, not because he was colorblind, but because he grew up a military brat, and his upbringing taught him to measure a man by his rank and not his color, and his friendship to be based on character. But so was his prejudice. He grew into one of the finest military squad leaders, ever leading his medical incursion team to over 200 rescues, doing on land what the Coast Guard is famous for on the sea. But you never heard of them because it was the late 70s, no more Vietnam, and his rescues would flood, tornado, or earthquake related, lost in the mire of everyday news. You know him as the citizen soldier of the Guard and Reserves. It was a true butterfly story, just like one of those told by Brother Blue, but it was real life, especially at a time it was told because we were still in Vietnam. So I became the butterfly librarian, technology trained by Wentworth, letters trained by Simmons, and athletically hardened by the United States military, a true athlete and scholar. Strange times indeed, war, pestilence, integration disputes, people overlooking the strip mining of the world's most fertile valley, i.e. the Sudan in 1970 produced enough food to feed 8 billion people. The food was allowed to rot on the docks because it was the product of black people, and apartheid was still in vogue in Africa. Yet college students grow up, and as people we learn new things. We learn to fly 5 times faster than sound. We learn the moon is not so far away, that all you have to do to integrate a college is to get an agreement between two opposites, i.e. a women's college and a men's technical school. And the students of both schools can take advantage of that. For me, it meant I was also able to graduate with a technical degree and a full minor in literature. Enough said, I am only rambling. But I want to thank some people here. There's a group called the Success Connection, and it reminded me to keep this all in perspective, all this just months ago when many others were having their Valentine's Day celebrations. The Success Connection helped me get through the anniversary of the loss of my wife and child, and the more recent death of my baby sister. Anthony was so inspiring. He's always there. He was there on Valentine's Day. He was there on the day his dad died. He's there for us, teaching us every Thursday night. And it seems I've been stuck behind and need to challenge myself to go on. This time I vow never to give up, not to quit, yet it is taking all my courage to go forward. I am caught in a catch-22. I need to make money to get my ClickFunnels account back up, yet I need money to reactivate my bank. I am in a fix before I could pick up a job, or I could sell something. But I feel like I'm being held hostage due to the lack of funds. I ask God, why give me this opportunity, then take it away? Why remind me of all the pain if I cannot do something about it? What am I missing? What did I forget to do? How come you allowed me to come this far and no further? Where do I go to get out of this fix? All these questions besiege me, and I need answers. And yet, in spite of it all, I know I can never give up. Tomorrow I will gather all my paperwork and numbers and see how I can straighten this out. Maybe I can find a way. I will try not to be depressed that my bank will keep charging me penalties until I get that negative balance done, or that my credit card is overextended. Because sometimes a band-aid is needed to stop the bleeding, and prayers have been known to be answered, though sometimes we miss the answer. I give myself permission to survive through it all until that answer is heard and understood, and I am no longer willing to give up my dream. I dream not to settle, not to compromise my life away, not to settle just for what someone else wants from me, as I have in the past. I believe there is something better for me out there, and I am tired of blue collar thinking, and I give myself permission for entrepreneurial thinking. I admit I need help. I admit that I have failed. I admit I have not taken into account that he needed more protection from an element of mankind known as the suppressive, those who steal from the weak because they can. I vow to champion the cause of the responsible people who work for the common good, and pray to my God that I find help so that I may give help to be able to pay it forward.